Ramsey Paul short video. I almost said the Ramsey Paul show because it feels like a live stream. Because I'm using my live streaming tools to make this video. And the reason I'm doing that is I think I can use a better mic. I got some feedback with my camera, which I've used for years. The mic is not as good as my mic I have here. And I saw my streaming tool has an ability to create videos and they have a primitive editor. So I'm going to give it a try. This is an experiment. Give me feedback how you like it. In many ways, it'll be easier for me. I just use the same tool, download it, upload it to YouTube and Rumble. I try to do both. And this is a public tool, public video. I try to mix up. Just a couple days ago, I did a video about why I don't think there's going to be World War III, and that's for my Gumroad subscribers, and it's also for my Substack. So check that out, and if you want to see more. But this is a public video, and in this video, I want to talk about my predictions for the Gaza War. And that's always a risk because when you make predictions, it may not come true. Today, just as a disclaimer, is Thursday, November 2nd. Okay, so we'll see how close I come. And at this point, Israel has invaded Gaza. It's been horrific. There's already been more civilian casualties in just 3 days of war in Gaza than there has been 2 years in Ukraine. It's been a bloodbath, and it's been a crazy situation. And I'm just trying to back up a little bit and analyze what I think is happening. And the first thing to understand is this is not a conventional war like you see in Ukraine, where you have two modern armies where they have tanks, they have aircraft, they have sophisticated artillery, the whole 9 yards. That's what we see in Ukraine and Russia. Hamas, they're a militia, and that's not to say they can't be dangerous, but they mostly just have small arms. Maybe they have some anti-tank guns, but that's about it. That's about it. They don't have divisions. They don't have a fleet. They don't have ships. They don't have aircraft. So this is a modern army, which is Israel, which is supported by your tax dollars, by the way. They're going into really just a bunch of civilians and some militia fighters. And right away, this poses a problem, is how do you determine who are the militia fighters versus the civilians? And in a guerrilla war, you always have this problem. We have this problem in Vietnam. Is like, how do you know the guy that's a friendly Vietnamese citizen versus a Viet Cong? You don't know. I mean, they don't wear name tags. And do you just start to kill them all? We did that in the My Lai massacre, I think it was. Yeah, that's bad optics. Or how do you deal it? So this is one of the challenges to the war. So just to set this straight, there's no way that Hamas can beat Israel in a traditional sense. So it's not like they're going to defeat Israel, destroy all their tanks, and invade Israel and take Tel Aviv. That's just simply not possible. They're not an army. They can't do something like that. Now they can make it bloody, they can make it difficult, but there's no way they can win the war in the sense of preventing Israel from taking over the territory. Israel can easily take over the territory. Now they may experience a lot of casualties and it may be difficult to hold it, but they definitely can go in and take it. But this really gets into what's the whole goal of this operation. And when this initially happened, it was based on the Hamas terror attack, which was really savage. And I'm not saying that Israel conducted this. It's not like a false flag, but I think they probably had some intelligence, but they were okay with this happening because it gave them an excuse, a pretext to invade Gaza, because Israel has had an eye on this territory to take it because they believe it should be their territory. If you look on the map, Gaza Strip is just like 20 miles long and 5 miles wide. It's just a tiny area in Western Israel. And that's where they dumped some Palestinians. And I think Israel's always had a desire to take that back, especially Israeli settlers wanted to break the agreement and start to settle there. So this has been in a design or a wish for a long time by the Zionists. They have definitely wanted to do this. So this came while I'm sure they weren't happy. Some of their people were killed. This gave them an excuse to go in there. And there's a couple of different things that can happen. One thing is, well, what do you do with the Palestinians there? What do you do? Initially, after the terror attacks, you had people like Lindsey Graham, Nikki Haley, Ben Shapiro. Honestly, they were basically talking in genocidal terms. Glass the place, flatten the place. Some of them are still kind of talking in those terms. They don't care about civilian casualties at all. So if they think there's a Hamas commander in a hospital with little kids, flatten it, kill all the kids if you have to get the Hamas commander. That's literally their morality they have now. It's really quite shocking how bloodthirsty it is. But recently, I've seen that most of them have backed off this genocidal talk. I mean, that's one way you can deal with this situation. Just wipe out, kill everyone in the West, in not the West Bank, in the Gaza Strip. But they backed off on that. So then they started to with Plan B, which is basically ethnic cleansing. I don't use the term ethnic cleansing, but that's what it is. They want to ship all the Palestinians out of that land, and that's their home. So where do they go? Well, they're not going to go to Israel, because Israel needs to remain a Jewish state. And if they all came into Israel, those people could vote because they have a lot of children. It's a democracy, and it would no longer be a Jewish state. We can relate to that, Israel. We can relate to that. So Israel and the neocons are like, oh no, 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 we can't do that. We got to ship these people somewhere else. Well, where? And this, because no one wants them. They one idea was ship them to Egypt, but it looks like they're trying to finalize maybe temporarily go to Egypt, but for the long term to be dispersed among the United States, Canada, England. So basically, Israel's goal is to ethnically cleanse these people out because they don't want it, because they want to maintain Israel as a Jewish state. It's an ethno state. Even though we can't have such a state, that would be considered Nazism, but they're allowed to because they're chosen. So they're going to ethnically cleanse these people, and we got to take them, and then we got to put them on welfare, and we'll get all the problems that will be associated with, but they don't care. And I think that is the plan, really where they're going. But another issue with that is, will they be able to do that, totally ethnically cleanse everyone out of there? I'm kind of doubting that. So they floated another trial balloon of, well, we might have to have an international force led by the United States. That's right, United States troops, boots on the ground, to basically control Gaza, because we've said they can't have Hamas as their government. And you could call Hamas the terrorist group. It probably is, but they were elected. They were elected by the Palestinians. They got like 70% of the vote. So we're going to impose a new democracy, kind of like the one Ukraine has, the way the United States is becoming. You can vote for anyone you want as long as it's this person. So I think the goal is to ethnically cleanse as many people as they can out of Gaza. And the people that remain, there's going to be a force there led by the United States. Probably not Israel because they don't want to risk their troops, but American soldiers trying to rule over these people, and will install a puppet government, that'd be gay friendly and all that type of stuff, and Israel friendly. I think that's the goal. Now, of course, our boys over there will be subject to guerrilla warfare, roadside bombs, snipers, just like it was in Afghanistan or it was in Iraq, because it's easy to get in there. But then the people resent it, and they're going to be in a guerrilla warfare against you, and it's going to be like a police state there. It's going to be a horrible situation. After what we went through in Vietnam, then Afghanistan, it's amazing we could go back into the same situation. But I think this is the most likely situation that's going to happen. Now, is this going to break out into a greater war? I did a video about this, and I don't really think so. Iran is not taking the bait. They realize that elements within the Biden administration, not just Biden administration, but some Republicans want this to be a wide war, especially with Iran. Israel has wanted to take out Iran for a long time, but they need an excuse to do so. So they were kind of, or elements were hoping that Hezbollah, that's another group that's Iranian backed, would invade from the north, and that would give them an excuse to attack Iran. That's why the United States has put carriers in the Mediterranean Sea. There's no reason to have carriers there for Hamas. Again, Hamas doesn't have a navy, they don't have an air force. They're just, they're in sandals with AK-47s, basically, is what they are. So there's no need for aircraft carriers. The carriers are for Iran. And there's an element that wants this war with Iran. There's a one element's the Christian Zionists. They think this might bring on a world war that would help bring Jesus back. I know that sounds crazy, but there's an element that believes it. And then the neocons, they've long wanted this war for Israel to take out one of Israel's enemies. Remember, in the 90s, they said they wanted to get rid of Iraq, Syria, and Iran. And we've toppled Saddam Hussein. It turned out to be bloody and a lot of terrorism out of there. Syria, we weren't successful, but now they got their eyes to Iran. But I don't think Iran's going to take the bait. Iran said they're not going to get involved with this. So I think a lot of people in the administration are really disappointed about that. The United States still may look for an excuse to attack Iran, but we will have to see. Another reason for the war is because it looks like the war in Ukraine is lost, or proxy war with Russia. It didn't go as we expected, the counteroffensive. And already the regime is putting out articles saying Zelensky has lost control. It's a hopeless situation. And the Republicans are starting to push back on Ukrainian spending. There's been a lot of articles about corruption in Ukraine. Remember, last time Zelensky came to America, his wife spent $1 million shopping for jewelry in New York City. It's a corrupt administration in Ukraine, and it's quickly losing support. I think they want to pivot from that and just pretend that didn't happen, and they want to get a quick victory. And I put victory in quotes in Gaza, because this is more of a traditional war that the United States can fight. Okay, we're fighting guys in sandals with an AK-47. That's not as dangerous as Russia. United States has experience with that, like, for example, recently in Afghanistan. Now, I say victory because you can have your troops there, but then we're going to have to try to defend the puppet government of whoever we install for the leadership of Palestine, or the Palestinian people, and it'll be handpicked by the United States. And the people will see that government as a puppet, and that government would topple quickly unless it was for the United States Marines trying to defend that government. So we're going to be stuck in another quagmire, it looks like, in the Middle East. Get out of Afghanistan, and now we're in the Gaza Strip. But I think that's the most likely scenario. So the likely scenario is, just to recap, Israel continues with their invasion of Gaza. They're successful in the sense that they take it, uh, which means they're in the territory. But then it's, what do we do with the people? I think some of the people they're going to try to ethnically cleanse and push off and dump in Canada and the United States, because again, Israel doesn't want them. And then the people that remain, they're going to demand that Hamas can't be the government anymore, and the United States will come in and they'll pick a puppet government, and we'll say, these are your new leaders. This is, or we'll have a new election, and you can vote for this puppet or that puppet, just like we do in the United States. You get two puppets to vote for, but they're really the same party. And then we'll say that's a legitimate government, but the Palestinians won't see it as legitimate. So we'll have to have our troops there to prop up that puppet government. Meanwhile, our troops will be attacked with sporadic guerrilla warfare, roadside bombs, snipers, the whole bullshit. So sadly, it looks like we could be going into that situation. All right. I hope this video turns out okay. Let me know. If this works, I may do more just like this. In some ways, this is easier. I will give it a try, though. We'll see how this works. Talk to you guys later.